Welcome to the Author Showcase Series presented by the South Florida Writers Association, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide literary arts and support writers. This month, our guest is C.V. Shaw, a native Floridian of Cuban descent. Shaw is a doctor of Oriental Medicine, quantum energy medicine practitioner, MindScape instructor, and a novelist/poet residing in Miami. Her debut novel, The Spell, is a work of fantasy fiction set in medieval England. Shaw's short story Ripped was adapted to a short film titled Channel Zero, earning 7 film festival laurels, including the Madrid International Film Festival. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I always like to start from the beginning. When did you first realize you were a writer?
I think I still haven't realized it yet.
Yeah.
I think I've got some of the imposter syndrome still going on, but I've always written since I was a little girl, with, started off with poetry, but I always had a story in my head. I was always creating some story. And, they've been in my head for a long time. I've got a lot of works in progress that haven't been finished, but I think I've always written ever since I could write. I've written, whether I've written it down or it's been in my head, but I've always had a story. Yeah.
And you grew up here in Miami?
I'm born and raised.
Born and raised. So did the city inspire you as a writer at all?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. I think it's just my mind is always creating stuff. Just, I think out of boredom. I'm the kind of person that I can't stand to be bored. So if I was bored, I would create something fun in my head, and I'd create that story in my head. And except now I'm just writing about them. So, but I was definitely not inspired by this city. No, I don't think at all.
Okay.
Although I am working on something that has to do with, with the city, something small, but, and I've written a poetry about it, but, not my writing inspiration is definitely not from the city.
Okay. So tell me what did inspire your novel?
Okay, so it's okay. So I'll tell you. First, I had started writing as a poem. It was going to be a poem. I was bored, right? I was sort of like in a waiting period, just sitting in the car, just looking at, all these trees in front of me. And I thought, oh, I wonder what could be on the other side of those trees. Could you imagine what could be? And all of a sudden I saw like a castle, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a castle on the other side. Imagine if there was a castle. Imagine if I, cross all this, forestry, and I find the castle, and then what would I see there? And I'm like, oh, there's a princess right there. I wonder what's going on in her head. And so I started writing about it like a poem, and then it got a little longer, and I thought, okay, so it could be a short story. And then it just kept going, and then it got fun. Then there was, information coming through, and I couldn't stop there. It's like, oh, I'm getting some information I wouldn't have thought of myself. But what was really interesting is that when I finished The Spell, almost 300 pages later, and I finished The Spell, and I had my first interview on a podcast. Right after I finished that podcast, I realized, oh my goodness, I think I just wrote one of my past lives, because I'm also a hypnotherapist. And when I was studying that in my early 20s, I had a regression, which I had completely forgotten about because that was over 30 years ago. And after I finished that podcast, it hit me, and I thought, oh my goodness, that my vision writing The Spell was exactly that past life. And it just occurred to me at that moment. And I'm like, I think I just wrote a past life of mine. So I found it interesting. It was like it wanted to come through. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that something you think of writing is? It's kind of we're exploring past lives. Do you think that's what imagination sometimes is?
I think it's the combination. I think we're exploring our subconscious. We have a lot going on in our subconscious. And I think that a lot of times the way that it heals, or it expresses itself in order to heal, because it's got to come out of us, because we don't see it. We don't know what's going on in the subconscious. And it finds a way, when it's time for it to heal, it finds a way for us to express it, right? Because once we see it, it's sort of, we've healed it. So I think we're always writing from, or even if it's not just writing, even if it's, art, music, or, any form of expression or art, we're we're digging in there, even if we don't realize we're doing it, and we're bringing out whatever we've got going on in the subconscious. It's time for it to come out and heal.
So
Yeah.
so you talked a little bit about the process. How long did it take between, and what was your process like between seeing that plant and having the concept to the book coming out in 2020, 2021?
Yeah, the book came out. I actually finished a book in 2016, 2017, but the
Okay.
process, took a long time. And then, the pandemic was also mingling in there. But yeah, I would write every day for 4 hours from, I want to say from 11 to 3, more or less. Between 10:30 and 11:30, I would begin, and then I would stop at 3. And I wrote every single day, Monday through Sunday. And I had a playlist, medieval music playing in my ear. I had some, I had cut out some like magazines and from some books, just, from that medieval times, just so I could have it in front of me, just to get me in the mood, sort of like a mood board. And I did that for 7 months straight. 7 months straight. I was very organized, right? And you'd think I had a plan, right? But I totally pantstered it the whole way through. But I was organized in my, my mythology. I did it very, very organized. I mean, I really, had a schedule, a routine, and I stuck by it, which is really not me, because I'm very right-brained and I can't stick to routines and schedules. But I think that's probably why I finished it, 7 months later, because I stuck
So
to that schedule.
so it's been a while since you finished that book in 2016. Are
Yeah.
you writing anything else now? Are you working on anything
Yeah,
else?
I have a lot of work in progress, like I said, even from years before that I haven't finished. And I think I needed to finish this one in order to see that I could do it, because when I finished the spell, it didn't even occur to me that I was going to publish it. I finished it and I showed somebody and they're like, "Oh, but you're going to publish it." And I thought, publish? No, I mean, I was fine with it just having been finished, like, a sense of accomplishment, because that was a dream for me. But then I was encouraged to publish it. And, the editing took a really long time, but seeing that, okay, you could actually take it further, you can publish it, people can read it, you can actually like make money from it. Like none of that had crossed my mind. So now I'm trying to, all the works that I've done, I'm trying to work on them and have them published eventually, hopefully. And I think probably my next one is going to be my collection of poetry. I think that's probably ready now.
Okay,
Just
great, great.
that, yeah.
Do you have a title for this collection of poetry?
I don't yet. I have thought of some things. There's one title that's really like calling me, and I don't know where this came from because it doesn't even really make sense. Subconsciously, probably would make sense. But it's convertible airplanes.
Convertible airplane. Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know why that's come to me. It's like that's what it wants to be called. But it's not set in stone.
And tell me a little bit about being a doctor of Oriental medicine, quantum energy medicine practitioner. How does that influence you as a writer?
Oh, you know what? That's so interesting, because I think that I hear so many stories, and I do a lot of past life healing as well. And I've been told by a lot of my patients when they've received a past life healing, they're like, "Oh, you should write about that. You should write about." So it's occurred to me to in a fictional manner, write about different past lives that I've encountered in during a healing with them. So that's how it's influenced me. Another method that I use, speaking about today with the full moon, is it's good to write or not write when it's a full moon or a new moon. It's good to like start a new chapter when it's a new moon, sort of finish a chapter when it's a full moon, and things like that. So I do bring that into my schedule as well, because the energy is a bit different, and it assists in whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish.
And how does it work with past lives so much? As it's interesting. Like, how many past lives do you think people have generally, or
Well, it's interesting because it's really the way that I've been taught. It's not that we have all these past lives, and I'll give you like a quick scenario about how I was taught about it. There is what we call the Sea of Mahat, the karmic ocean. Okay,
okay?
where all all of the issues that we're supposed to experience or resolve in a lifetime go when they're not resolved. So, so when a person is born, and this is, again, this is what I was taught, so I can't say that this is 100% true, but it does make sense. It's almost as if they take, some of that water, and it's got different issues that have to be resolved in the lifetime, and they pour it into that person or that body. But all those unresolved issues that's being poured in, they're being poured in because they haven't been resolved for the universe, but they all carry the memory of everyone else who tried to resolve it and didn't resolve it. So when they pour it in, you're also taking in the memory of all those that tried to resolve it that didn't accomplish that resolution. And so now you've got the memory of their entire life within your system, within your energetic system. And that's what we consider past lives.
Okay.
Not so much that, okay, you were born and then you died and then you were born. So that's why some people say, oh, I was a Cleopatra, and someone else says, oh, so was I. And it's like, well, how many people could have, and it's because you're carrying the memory. It's like a hologram. A hologram contains the whole, right? And you can split it in many different, numbers, but each one carries the whole. So many different people can carry an aspect or a hologram, which carries the entire memory of the entire lifetime. So that's why you remember that lifetime. But people refer to it as past lives.
Okay. This sounds like a book that has to be written.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So you're a member of the South Florida Writers Association.
Ah.
How's that worked out for you? How
Oh, I
you
love it. I really love it. I don't remember how I found out about it. I think it was through Facebook. Somebody mentioned a poetry group at the Pinecrest Branch Library, and I thought, oh, this is great. Let me go check it out. Which I loved it, by the way, and I love all the members, and it's a lot of fun. But I've loved it because about a week before I went to the very first poetry meeting, I found in one of my journals a poem that I had written in 2016 about the moon. And so Mort, which was the past president, mentioned in that meeting that they were taking submissions for poetry, but it had to be about the moon. And if picked, it would be in an anthology that was going to go in a time capsule to the moon. And I thought, oh my God, I just found that poetry. Like, what a coincidence, I wrote a second one just in case. He said we could submit two just in case, one didn't get picked. They both did get picked. So, I mean,
Oh, great.
I was elated. And that to me was like magical, because it's like, that's a dream come true to have like anything that's got my creativity, my essence in the moon. I mean, that's amazing. So to me, that was a dream come true. I'm like, oh, this is, what, I mean, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe I was led there and right on time, because probably had I gone, a week or two later to the poetry meetings, that would have been past me. But I happen to have found that poem, I mean, just right on time. So I love that happened. I'm taking, I do classes with Ricky Dorn.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. We have a little group where we like critique our writing, and I mean, I love doing that. I told her if she stops, I'd have to be her private student, because discovering that about her has been amazing. The book fair also was a dream for me to be at the book fair. They haven't accepted me because they told me I already presented at the book fair, which I never had. But I was able to be there with the spell this last year, and that was like another dream come true. So it's like, okay, the moon, the book fair, like all these amazing things are happening because I joined the South Florida Writers Association. So I'm having a blast. I'm loving every part about it. I'm very grateful that it was put in my path. So,
Fantastic.
and I think
One more question, I'll let you go.
no worries.
I wanted to learn about the movie too that was based on one of your short stories. How did
Okay.
that come to be?
Okay. So my youngest son was a film student in California, and he needed to write. He said, I want to write something horror, in the horror genre. And I said, I have a story. It was a 100-word contest for NYC Midnight. And I think I got number 7. And that's a huge contest. It's an international contest. So to be at number 7 to me was like, I was mind blown, especially at 100 words, it's so difficult to write a story in 100 words. And so I showed it to him. He's like, yeah, I want to come up with my own thing. And I said, just take a look at it. And he's like, I think I can adapt this. So he adapted it, you know, he had to change some things because I had a dog in my story and he couldn't do a dog. So he changed it and he adapted it, and I mean, it was amazing. It really got, like I say, 7 film festivals.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. You got to collaborate with your son, with your child. That's
yeah,
got to be
exactly. And I mean, he's not because he's my son, but he's very good at what he does, filmmaking, screenwriting, all of that. So, and it's got so many views on YouTube, and it was just very cool to do. It was also sort of like, okay, you can do this too. This, you publish a spell, you're seeing this on screen, you know, more can happen. So I'm hopeful that more can be
yeah,
on screen.
awesome. Well,
So,
anything else you want to say before we finish the interview?
no, I'm really grateful to you for the interview. So thank you for having me on. But I'm also
Of
so
course.
grateful for South Florida Writers Association. I really like want to give them a shout out because I'm just so pleased being part of it. It's been so much fun, and I love being part of it. I think all the writers here in South Florida should definitely join, and there's so much to offer. They've got critique groups, poetry groups. It's fun. The meetings are fun. The Mango Conference was great, and there's a lot to offer from them. So that's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time. And thank you
No,
guys for watching.
yeah, and thank you for having me on, David. I appreciate it.